The land, which is variously called Israel and Palestine, lies east of the Mediterranean Sea. The small-sized land, about 26,000 square kilometers, which is about as big as 70% of the Netherlands, has a great history. During this history, the ownership, area and population varied a lot. Palestine has been settled continuously for thousands of years. Archaeologists found wheat at Jericho dating from 8000 BC, making it one of the oldest sites of agricultural activities in the world. Amorites, Canaanites, and other Semitic people related to as Phoenicians of Tyre entered the area about 2000 BC. And the area became known as the land of Canaan because of this. The archaeological records indicated that the Jewish tribes evolved out of the native Canaanite people and invading tribes. Sometime between 1800 and 1500 BC, it is thought that Semitic people, called Hebrews, left Mesopotamia and settled in Canaan. Different tribes, including Semitic people, settled in Canaan. And according to the Bible, Moses led the Israelites, or a portion of them, out of Egypt. Under Joshua, they conquered the tribes and city-states of Canaan. And based on, estimated that King David conquered Jerusalem about 1000 BC. And established an Israeli kingdom. About 61 BC, Roman troops from Pompey invaded Judea and sacked Jerusalem in support of King Herod. Judea became a client state of Rome. The Romans called the large central area of the land, which included Jerusalem, Judea, according to the Christian belief that Jesus Christ was born in Bethlehem, Judea. In the early years of the Roman rule, the Romans drove Jews out of Jerusalem, following in the Bar Kokhba revolt. The Romans named the area Palestine because which later became Palestina, all the way around. The Romans named it Palestina, which later became Palestine in English. Most of the Jews who continued to practice their religion fled or were forcibly exiled from the area. However, Jewish communities continued to exist primarily in the Galilee, the northernmost part of Palestine. Palestine was governed by the Roman Empire until the 4th century after Christ, and then by the Byzantine Empire. In this time, Christianity and paganism, imported by the Romans and the others, were probably inhabited Palestina consciously. And Christianity spread to most of Palestine.
During the 7th century, Muslim Arab armies moved north from Arabia to conquer most of the Middle East, including Palestine. Jerusalem was conquered about 638 by Caliph Omar, who gave it protection to its inhabitants. Muslim powers controlled the region until the early 1900s. The rulers allowed Christians and Jews to keep their religion. However, most of the local population gradually accepted Islam and the Arab Islamic culture of their rulers. Jerusalem, also known as Al-Quds, became holy to the Muslims as the site where, according to tradition, Muhammad ascended to heaven. The Al-Aqsa Mosque was built on a site generally regarded as the area of the Jewish temples. Jews never stopped coming to the Holy Land or Palestine in small numbers throughout the exile. Palestine also remained the center of Jewish worship and a part of Jewish culture. However, the Jewish connection with the land was mostly abstract and connected with dreams of messianic redemption. What is nowadays called Israel is all the land from the River Jordan up to the Mediterranean Sea. This land covers about 78% of the area. The remainder is divided between land occupied by Israel since they won the Six-Day War with Egypt in 1976 and the independent regions under Palestinian control. This land is terrorized by war, especially in the Gaza Strip. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict has its roots in the late 19th and the early 20th century, with the birth of major nationalist movements among the Jews as well as the Arabs, both geared towards attaining sovereignty for their people in the Middle East. This caused a lot of Jewish immigration in Palestine in search for a new homeland, and the search is called Zionism. The remaining key issues are mutual recognition, borders, security, water rights, and the control of Jerusalem. There are three paramount pro-Palestinian arguments. First of which is at the end of the First World War, Palestine was freed from Turkish rule and should have been entitled to self-government, like other countries around it. If it had been allowed its own government, it would have passed laws to limit foreign immigration and regulate land ownership, and Israel would never have gotten started. The British government of the time, having been left in temporary control of the area, deliberately prevented Palestinian self-determination until the Jews had time to arrive in force and take over. No other people in the world would have peacefully permitted their country to be completely taken over by foreign immigrants of a different race, different culture, a different language, and different religion. The Jewish settlers never made any pretense of settling down amicably with their neighbors, but aimed all along at the Jewish homeland, which excluded the Palestinians, the natives of the region. This resulted in a systematic genocide of the Palestinians, with the Israelis bombing Palestinian settlements, schools, mosques, and mosques for no reason.
There are also a couple of invalid Israeli arguments. We're going to mention two. The first one being our distant ancestors owned this land, and therefore we were wrongfully dispossessed. Therefore we're entitled to take it back. The ancient Israelis lived there thousands of years ago. If everyone had the right to claim the land their ancestors lived thousands of years ago, there would be chaos worldwide. Therefore, if there was any effective international law, this absolutely wouldn't be included. Second statement is Jews have been without a country for many centuries and were persecuted by many people. Surely they were entitled to a country of their own at last. Firstly, no one's objecting to Jews having their own country, but they weren't morally entitled to take another civilization's country without their consent. This consent was plainly lacking. Because of this history and the previous arguments, we have decided as a group to choose the side of Palestine. We believe the situation has been unfair for the Palestine population from the beginning onwards. With knowledge of the history and thus the amount of time passed between the latest Jewish authority and the present war, we believe that the Israelis are being irrational. The land was indeed owned by the Jews thousands of years ago, but since the Romans ruled, there was never any Jewish authority. Imagine buying a house and living there for 40 happy years, and suddenly the past owners come back to claim it. You would be upset and you would try to defend it. These feelings could be replaced with the feelings of the Palestine population. They were living there for thousands of years, and suddenly with the start of Zionism, the Jews come back and want to take their land, and they even succeed. Palestine has already lost a lot of land, and we believe this should be rectified. Therefore, we are on the side of Palestine. We've also been thinking about a solution for the problem in general. There are two main solutions, the one-state solution and the two-state solution. And Juliet is going to give a little bit more of information about that.
Okay. There's a one-state solution because they're there now, and the two puppets represent Israel and Palestine. If they just lay down the weapons and shake hands and make peace because they're there now, then the problems would be solved. But we all know that is not going to happen, and this might be the result. So a one-state solution isn't the best solution. It is in theory, because you wouldn't have any problems with dividing the land and people thinking it's unfair because we will share. So well, it's not going to happen, so it's not very realistic. Then there's the two-state solution in which you divide the land. It's, as been said before, the Israeli people have 78% now, and that's not very fair. So you divide it, and if you succeed dividing the land equally, you're always going to have the people that still don't agree with it, and they keep wanting a different part of the land, and it's just the way it is. So if you were going to divide it equally, you place it
Fine.
Alright, so if you were to divide the land equally and you place a wall in between, then you wouldn't have any chance of war, but they wouldn't think it's fair. So they break down the wall and get angry and still kill each other. So that's not a very realistic solution either. So what do you do? Because they're there now and you can't keep having war. This is our solution. You do divide it because, well, they can't live there together. But then you have the problem of the religious places, like Jerusalem. They're both important. It's important to both religions. So what do? We thought that the religious places might be neutral, like a sort of Disneyland. You place a wall around it, and there are guards there, and you hand in your weapons, and you get them back when you leave. You're not allowed to get it in Disneyland, so how about that? You go there to do your religious rituals, and it's neutral. And then you can go back and exit and go to your own land, so you don't have to have a war.
So our overall conclusion from a Palestine point of view is that it would be best to have a combination of both solutions. We still believe it's unfair that the Palestinians have lost that much land, but it's just impossible to have it all because the Jews are already there. We think it's in Palestine's best interest to create a state of their own, and for the Jews to have a state of their own because they both will have their religious places and they could just live happily ever after.